One, two. Hi, Erin.
Hey, what's up,
Oh,
Emmy?
long time no talk. It just
Yes.
feels like life has been really lifing lately
I know. With
for
that
both
full
of
moon
us.
in Scorpio lately, which is a perfect tie-in for today's topic.
By the way, what's my rising?
I would have to look that up on your birth chart.
And how
So,
do you do that? Is it just like you put like I'm an Aries?
right, and then you would have to say the time that you were born and the place that you were born, and then
Mm-hmm.
that says what was in the sky above you. And your rising sign is the sign that was like coming on the eastern horizon, and your moon is what sign the moon was in at the time of your birth.
Okay. And
Hmm.
based on that, it like affects my personality.
Well, this feels like a different podcast.
It is, but just tell me really quick. Give me like a one sentence soundbite.
It depends on the school of thought. I mean, there's different philosophies in regard to astrology and what that means. I come from the philosophy where your sun sign is the lens with which you see the world. Your rising sign is the way that people first perceive you and also the attributes that you're growing into. And your moon is the skills that you most naturally have and what your toolkit that you can easily access.
hmm That was extremely understandable, and I'm glad you told me because I didn't know any of that.
You're
And
welcome.
BT Dubs, it's not a different podcast because we're talking about Teen Wolf and
Yes, we are
full
talking about Teen Wolf
moons,
today. That's
right?
right. That's right.
So, welcome to the Video and Vinyl Club. I'm Emmy Wildwood. I am a musician, a producer, an art director, and someone who's clearly a fan of green if you're watching on YouTube. And this is my gorgeous, incredible, talented, beautiful, good friend, beautiful souled, horoscope knowledgeable friend
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
co-host,
Oh,
friend
thank you,
co-host,
Emmy.
Erin Mars.
Oh, thank you so much, Emmy. My beautiful, sweet, gorgeous, funny, loyal friend. My name is Erin Mars. I am a writer, a director. I've produced in the commercial world different things. I have produced in the theater world. I have written in both those worlds. And here I am with the wonderful Emmy. And I just want to clarify something because some of our listeners, I don't know if they realize when you say you're a producer that you are a music producer,
Yes, I am
which
a
is like
music
a
producer.
huge accomplishment for anybody who's familiar with the world of the music industry, let's say. There are not a lot of female music producers. If you've ever been a musician and you've walked in the room and you're working with a producer, most often they have a penis. And so it's kind of really awesome and a huge testament to your professionalism and the craftsmanship that you bring into the room as a musician and as a bandmate. Um,
Thanks, Erin.
because you bring in a whole other level of like education and you have an incredible ear and you hear things that, has taken a lot of time and training and you've spent a lot of time on your craft. So I think I just want to make sure everybody understands when she's saying producer, she's not saying like she's a film producer, and film production is hard. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
not, but there is like
no,
a certain level of artistic prowess that you have to possess if you're a music producer, and you
yeah.
definitely have that. So,
That's really nice. Thanks. Sometimes I
yeah.
need to be reminded of that myself.
Yes.
There are more and more female music producers these days, which is really great, but I definitely came up during a time where it was maybe my 95% male producers. From the time I was 15, I worked in single studio environments. When I say single studio, I mean like a man who owned a studio
Yep.
and I was sitting there in the chair next to them. It is definitely nice to see more and more females coming up, but I will say I come from a very old school background where I've been taught the old way and the new way, which is kind of
Hmm.
valuable, meaning that lots of female producers these days are working off of beatboxes, which is totally cool. But we were all taught to create sound from an organic source, meaning, you know, you worked with what you had, what was around you. If you didn't
Yeah.
have the right sound, drum, you'd bang a kitchen knife on a mixing bowl to try
Yeah.
and get
Yeah.
it, and then add, compression and reverb and delay and all these things to get the thing you wanted. And so,
Yeah. I want people to understand, especially with what we talk about on this podcast, that your background, because I think it's
yeah,
really
it's really
important. I mean,
nice.
both of us have, a diverse artistic background, but you're very skilled. You're
Oh,
very
that's really
accomplished.
nice.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So the 1 minute I'm just going to take is to say that, and this is not for me, this is for the audience and the listeners. If we have any female musicians or, composers, since this is,
Yes.
since we talk about movies a lot, is that since I did work next to somebody since I was 15, I had a sort of blockage in my brain that told me I wasn't capable of being the one, the captain in the captain's chair, meaning the person in the seat of the producer, running the computers, being the sound engineer, being the director. I had this idea that I was simply an artist who could have sort of off the wall ideas that needed to be, tamed down and shaped and molded
Sure.
by a man nearby.
Yeah.
And someone suggested to me at the age of 37 years old that I might know what I'm doing behind a computer because I had been sitting next to somebody for since I was 15, a solid 20 years. I had been
Yeah.
studying the computer, the instruments and the tools you needed to record sound, and I sat down in front of it and it took me 30 days to really learn. It was basically I understood everything. I just needed to learn the software. As an artist, I get overwhelmed. I have a lot of ideas, but I decided to focus on it for 30 days and it was came so naturally to me. It was so easy. I had 20 years of experience under my belt. So if you think you can't do something, you have to start asking yourself, get curious, why do I think I
Yes.
can't do that?
Yes. Yes.
Why?
Absolutely.
And a lot of times money is a thing, and most artists just need money. We're
Yep.
finding more and more
Yep.
and opportunities. But
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, there is a really creative ways around money. There's creative ways around technicalities. There's free downloads. There's sharing. There's trading skills. There's all kinds of things to
Yeah.
do what you need to do, and often your weaknesses become your strengths in that category. Meaning, like if you when you work within limitations, you often find out what your strengths are. So don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you. Find another way, make little tiny moves. It's great. Yeah, Erin and I met through music. You all probably know that in the band Guns N' Hoses. We've talked about how Erin's an award-winning director and she's, for her film Daddy Issues, and she's worked with as a star of many Lifetime films, by the way. Go look her up. I love it. Nobody even knows she's a incredibly talented actor. Erin has produced in the commercial world, and as a musician who rarely made money, I always did makeup, and Erin hired me for commercial jobs. So we've worked together in commercial aspects. We've worked together on short films. We've worked together in the composing department.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's how we know each other. So it's been a minute since we've talked about this, and I appreciate you bringing it up. But you know what? We're talking about a movie today, Teen Wolf, that neither of us really felt like a whole episode could fill out. So I feel I feel just
It's one of
fine
those
about it.
episodes. Yeah. And I think it's also great to kind of give as much information to our audience as possible about the resources that we can provide to people, right? Because I think that, let's say someone is looking for a producer. Emmy is a wonderful producer. You should email us. You should email her. You can hit her up on Instagram. You could email us directly at the pod if you want, but she can and she will work with you. And she has worked with me and she is a wonderful producer. So I highly, highly recommend her as a producer on any kind of musical project. She can really help you come from your concept to the finished product in a beautiful way that you can feel incredibly proud of. So
Thanks. So,
that's the truth.
anyways,
So we're tastemakers. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're
yeah, we're
saying. You know what
tastemakers.
I'm
And
saying? That's what we're saying over
I,
here.
I just thought of a really brilliant segue.
Sure.
Much like we're talking about using your, weaknesses as strengths and
Uh-huh.
finding out what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox's career was completely born out of his weaknesses, his limitations, and he's the star of our, you know, I would like to say that this is a Michael J. Fox themed episode and less of a Teen
Yeah.
Wolf episode.
Yes, I agree. I agree
Um,
with that.
though we will be talking about Teen Wolf, it is an important movie to talk about for his career in general.
Yes.
And Aaron joked last week that Teen Wolf is one of Michael J. Fox's opuses, along with Back to the Future. But as funny as that is, especially after watching Teen Wolf again,
Yeah.
he got Teen Wolf because of his role on Family Ties, where he played a young Republican in a very sort of like hippie
Mhm.
liberal family. He was like his goofiness, his shakiness, his bouncing off the wallness, and his energy really started to get him these roles where he became a true teen icon. And this also fits into our werewolf series. So I think it's a nice segue maybe out of our werewolf series until a really awesome werewolf movie comes along that we feel like
Yeah,
deserves
yeah,
all.
we can yeah, we can talk more about more werewolf movies. I know I have so many more that I would love to discuss, but we don't have to always concentrate on what I like. We can move on to other things. But Michael J. Fox is one of my favorite actors in the world. I do think he is such a super talent, and everything you said is totally correct. Michael J. Fox got his acting career started when he was just 15. He was on that television show Family Ties, and he actually filmed Teen Wolf while he was still doing Family Ties.
Oh,
Though,
really?
yes, though Back to the Future actually was released before Teen Wolf.
Oh, I got it wrong.
It
Sorry.
helped. No, that's okay. He filmed Teen Wolf first, then he filmed Back to the Future, but for whatever reason, Back to the Future came out before Teen Wolf. And because of the success of Back to the Future and how he instantly, I mean, that kind of cemented him as like a really big star. Teen Wolf actually probably did a lot better because people had seen Back to the Future. They saw Michael J. Fox and they're like, "Oh, this guy's great. He's kind of funny. Oh, he's in this movie called Teen Wolf. Let's go check it out." Which I think really kind of can help. And that is something about the power of having well-known actors in your film is that people see that person, they associate them with other things they've seen, other projects. They understand what that person's kind of about, that actor's kind of about. And so it gives them more incentive to maybe go and check that out, which I think is also why sometimes it's really hard for somebody who's known for comedy to then switch over to drama and the audience gets a little confused. We can talk about that on another episode. But let's jump in. Let's talk about the wonderful movie Teen Wolf, which, as Emmy had said, if you listen to our werewolf background podcasts episodes, we've like talked about werewolves for a little bit now. This is a film that Emmy had said, I was like, what do you know about werewolves? And she's like, I just know Teen Wolf, which I thought was absolutely amazing because Teen Wolf completely deviates off of the canon of what the classic werewolf is,
It does. It does.
but it does stay true in the sense of some of those themes of, body changes and being that it's a teenager. We all know that teenagers go through that wonderful moment in later adolescence, becoming an adult, and your hormones are crazy, and your body's doing all these weird things, and you're not really sure what the hell's going on, and your brain is going nuts. And that kind of is a wonderful way to put that as like werewolfism, because that is one of the things, transformation, that werewolfism starts with. Before he time traveled into DeLorean, Michael J. Fox was slam dunking werewolf style in gym class. We're talking today about Teen Wolf, the 1985 cult classic that proves puberty is hairy and sometimes comes with superpowers.
Yes. It's a low budget, like 100%. Weirdly wholesome, a little sweaty. It's packed with synth rock jams you've probably never heard of, and I can't at all say they were good.
No.
Teen Wolf is like definitely an underdog movie that was accidentally became a box office hit, which is hard to imagine because to me it felt very much like an after school movie.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the power of how successful Back to the Future was and the huge impact of his stardom at that point that people saw him in as the lead in this other film. They're like, oh my God, I'll totally check it out.
Yes.
It had a budget of $1 million to make Teen Wolf, and then
Whoa.
it actually grossed 30 million. So it became like a huge, weird success. And yeah, the songs in this, there's no hits. There's a lot of songs from the 80s. I think there's
Yeah.
maybe like one song later that went on to some TV shows and stuff, but a lot of the films in the 80s, will have like that one song. You think of, 16 Candles or Pretty in Pink, and there's like a one hit song like in each of those films that you kind of remember those films from or can like
Yeah.
reference back to. There's none of that in Teen Wolf. Like the
No, no,
music's,
no, no.
it is a little bit weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
So here's the general setup of the film. Scott Howard, played by Michael J. Fox, is an average high school kid who discovers he's a werewolf. And instead of hiding it, he uses it to become a high school basketball legend and a local celebrity.
And of course, there's a love triangle. There's like a big game. There is a school dance where he full on howls and break dances, but also there's like a choreographed dance number. It's like one of those like glory scenes where like the popular guy starts to do a dance and then everyone at the dance starts, copying him because the dance is so sweet because everybody knows in an 80s movie that the
Hmm.
guy who like was a great dancer was the most popular, which is not like really a thing anymore, but
No. Oh my
although
God.
I wish it was.
Totally.
That's before TikTok. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
watch like those guys doing those crazy break dances on TikTok and like everyone at school is like, "Oh shit." Like
Oh
because
yeah.
like some skinny white kid all of a sudden can do all the
Oh my
like
gosh.
break dance
Totally.
moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's that kind of moment for those of you who like are younger and whatever, but
Yes.
that used to only happen in movies and people get the same thrill from that you're seeing in like a 15-second TikTok video. But
Totally.
anyways, okay.
Absolutely.
The film was directed by Rod Daniel, who's a TV comedy guy making his feature debut. So it was shot in just 21 days, like Aaron said. The budget was only $1.2 million. That's very low for people who don't really understand. I mean, it's not really low, but it's low for like a major picture and it's low for something that made $30 million. We're not
Yeah.
talking $275 million, but that's,
That's
it's like
huge for the 80s. I mean, I don't even know what the like today's money would be, but
no, it's
um
like anything. If you put $1.2 million and you get $30 million back, people are pretty excited about that. It's 30 times. 30
totally.
times.
It's a great
Yeah.
investment for
Yeah.
yeah, your future films. So Michael J. Fox, he had filmed this before he filmed Back to the Future, but Back to the Future came out. Okay.
First. Yeah.
Yeah, Back to the Future came out first. Thank you. He actually had hated the script of Back to the Future. He thought it was silly and he didn't want to do a sequel. But after Marty McFly became a household name, audiences swarmed to Teen Wolf just to see more of him because they thought this guy is amazing and they loved Marty McFly. They loved Michael J. Fox.
Yeah. So I kind of get that because
Hmm.
Back to the Future was so lovable. And he was such a hero. And the script was so good. I mean, Back to the Future was like little kids to parents. They could go see it together. It was incredible. So
Yeah,
well written. So of course, it's like that's happened before in a lot of other movie situations where like a good example is like Mike Myers. Mike Myers was
totally.
so good in Wayne's World. Everybody went to see everything. So I Married an
Yeah.
Axe Murder, all these sort of like you watch them now and you're like thinking back on it, I'm like, oh, that movie's so amazing. And then you watch it and you're like, that was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But everyone loved anything he did
Yeah.
because
Some
he
things
was
don't
just
age
so
well.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was just so good. Anyways, so let's talk about the cast. Basically, Jerry Levine. Styles. Jerry Levin Styles is maybe the most 80s best friend ever. He wears wild t-shirts. One of them said, "What are you looking at, Dick Nose?" I have those.
I actually loved his t-shirts.
No,
Every
that
time that character Styles came on and they're like, "Hey Styles," and he's just so like
yeah,
he's just got this energy of like, I don't give a shit. It
he's
was
like
so funny.
he is. He's like a little shithead. He's like a
Yeah,
Zach Morris type, just
totally.
scrappy, quick thinking, flashy outfits. And he is hilarious because every scene he comes on, he has a different sort of t-shirt that says something with like a slogan on it. What are you looking at? Dick Nose was such a good one. The very first one he wears says life sucks and then you die.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was like, what a strange, like, that's not how
It's
I would
kind of dark for
encapsulate
high
his
school.
character. Yeah, and it's not how I would encapsulate his character, but yeah, he's got like
Yeah.
party promoter energy for sure.
Totally is party promoter energy. Actually, Jerry Levine, he later went on to become a TV director and he directed a lot of shows you probably know. One being Everybody Hates Chris, great show if you ever checked that out. Monk, wonderful detective show.
Oh, I didn't
You name
realize he
it.
did Monk. Whoa, that's
Yeah, so he
crazy.
he went on to do a bunch of stuff.
And then Susan Ursity, who played Booth, which is like the girl next door, like sort of like push-pull love interest. She only did that movie. She left acting and became a yoga teacher. It's not for everybody. I don't
Not for
know.
everybody. And then we have James Hampton, who plays Scott's werewolf dad.
Genius.
Yeah, he might be the chillest on-screen dad ever. He had been a total sitcom staple in the 70s. So he's going to be somebody if you decide to watch this movie, you're going to kind of recognize him because he's got that like classic TV dad look. He's got the TV dad bod. He's got like a nice roundish kind of friendly face. He's got the soft kind of voice like, "Tell me what's up, pal." That kind of those kinds of vibes. Now, let's get into the real star of the movie, which let's talk about, and I don't know if it's really the star of the movie, but this is the Video and Vinyl Club. So we're going to be talking about the soundtrack. It's synth pop meets motivational rock, and it had a howling good time.
What are we talking about? The song Win the End by Mark Saffin. It plays during the final game, which is like a montage. It's got that rocky energy, but for a werewolf, but I don't know, sort of Eye of the Tiger vibes, but it, I mean, musicians, it didn't quite meet the mark. This is like a Muzak version of Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, there were so many moments in the film I was like, who was like the music supervisor on this?
No,
Like
I'm
who
like
put these songs in here? Like they almost didn't even make sense, some of
no,
them.
they spent $1 million on the budget and 0.2 on the music.
Yeah, like maybe not even. They're like, who's
Yeah,
got a cousin who lives in a basement and wants to slap some
that's
music in here? You know what I
exactly what
mean?
it's
Like there
like.
was so
That's
many
exact.
moments I thought that I was like, this is just strange, some of
No,
this
and
stuff.
it's funny that you say the thing about like it not making sense because Nick in the middle of it, that's my husband, was like, is she saying the candle's yours, blow it out? Like the whole at the very end in the end credits, there's a song that's like, "This is your moment, the candle's yours, blow it out." It's just like really weird, like a birthday song or something. I'm like, did a Swedish like pop band write this song? Was this like, do you know
Oh
what I
my God.
mean? It
Yeah,
almost sounds
totally.
like it's written by AI, but it didn't even exist yet. So I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
it just doesn't quite make
Um,
sense.
and then there was the Big Bad Wolf song, which is like the
That was kind of
campy
fun.
doo-wop track that literally plays during the school dance when Scott starts showing off his claws on the dance floor.
Yeah, definitely. I can see the pitch for that. Please need a song like Monster Mash. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
Hmm.
There's also Amy Holland's Shooting for the Moon, a slow, heartfelt moment of teen angst.
Yes.
No,
And like none of these songs were hits.
nope.
I mean, they definitely have a vibe. I don't know if it's the vibe that I would have chosen. But the
Vibe
sound,
is budget Casio
yeah,
keyboard
yeah,
you could
exactly.
now find at the thrift store.
The soundtrack was released by MCA Records, and if you find a vinyl copy, you're holding a piece of cult film history.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk weird trivia.
Hmm.
There's an urban legend about a background extra exposing themselves in the final scene. What?
Okay, so I heard that was actually totally fake, and it's just a
Yeah.
guy zipping up his pants awkwardly. But if you're looking, you kind of you're not sure. So I
Yeah.
can see how that myth definitely lives on.
Yeah. The basketball scene, Michael
Hmm.
J. Fox could barely dribble. So they used a taller, athletic body double in some scenes. You can totally see the difference.
You
Right in the beginning, you're like,
yes.
he played, yeah, of course he's bad at basketball. He's 3'7". I don't mean to be rude, but Michael J. Fox is proudly and very openly shorter
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
most
He's a
people.
petite man. Yeah.
Yeah. So in some ways it works because basically when he becomes the wolf, which is this whole thing is like it aligns with his like puberty, and when he becomes the wolf, he suddenly becomes a basketball star. So anyways, they use this like taller, more athletic body when he becomes the wolf, and he sort of becomes like really good at basketball. You can totally see the difference. They let it live. That's sort of the camp in this movie. I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like that's pretty common for a lot of films. They're like, okay, actor, we're just here so we can hear you talk and do these shots. We know you can't play basketball. Bring in the other guy. And it's like the other guy's a foot taller and they just never show his face, except for
Yeah.
probably some close ups where they get Michael J. Fox back on the basketball court and they're like, make a shot, pretend to make a shot, Michael. And he like lifts his arms with the ball and then they cut
Yeah.
away again. I have to say about that makeup, because there is obviously it's a werewolf movie and he does look like a wolf. He's like full furry body in a lot of this. It took 3+ hours and Fox could barely move his face because of the amount of makeup that was on. He reportedly said it felt like wearing a sweaty Halloween mask. And
Yeah.
I feel like these types of roles, when the actor has to wear like prosthetics and the whole thing, that's hard. That's
Yeah.
that's like an extra layer on top of what you're already having to be able
Yeah.
to like really perform under those circumstances.
So I will say though that now that we're speaking of the makeup, one of the most iconic, like, okay, so looking back on it, you know, and Erin's about to tell you probably that she didn't like this very much. And I can't, watching it as an adult, I'm like, I got a little bored again because I was like,
Yes.
this is beneath my pay grade. Just kidding. That was a joke. But literally it was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I was like very young when this came out, and the makeup was impressive and a little scary to me. I was wondering, did you watch it with Ryder?
I did watch it with Ryder. So my
Yes.
son is 4 years old, so we watched this together.
And he liked it?
He
Wasn't
didn't
sure.
he didn't get a lot of the stuff, but he
Yeah.
liked when he was the werewolf playing basketball.
Yeah.
He's
So
like,
like,
"Oh, so is the werewolf good or is the werewolf bad?" And I was like, "Well, it's kind of both. So it's
yes.
like he has to learn how to control the wolf. He has to,
Yes.
and which I think is obviously quite literally like control your emotions,
Yeah.
learn how to, in some ways it's like he's becoming an adult. So when you make
Yeah.
decisions, there's a higher level of impact in those decisions. And that's really like the metaphor here, right? It's like
Yeah, right?
with great power comes great responsibility, that kind of
Exactly.
um
Yes. Yeah.
idea.
Yes. And
Um
there's this iconic moment where Michael J. Fox sort of, as he's going through puberty, discovers that he is turning into a werewolf, and he's inside the bathroom. Michael J.
yeah.
Fox is freaking out. His dad's like, "Are you okay in there? You can tell me anything. Don't be afraid." And Michael J. Fox is like, "Okay, you asked for it." And he opens the door as a wolf. First, it shoots Michael J. Fox as a wolf, and then it pans to the dad who's looking at him, and his dad is in wolf makeup too. And it's
Yes.
classic. And Nick and I literally laughed out loud. So, you know, for whatever you might feel like about this movie, good or bad, it has these moments that, like Erin's saying, it was maybe too mature for her 4-year-old because it has sort of complicated, deeper sort of messaging in it. It's like an allegory for being yourself, or like she said, controlling, with great power comes great responsibility, all of these things. But it has kind of laugh out loud moments like Dick
Yeah.
Knows and things like that. Like these are a
Yes.
little bit more grown-up jokes. So it's like
Yes.
a movie you could definitely see with a parent. Music's terrible, but
Music is terrible. That being said, I do think, there's probably if we really listen to the music and like individually piece it out, maybe there would be a couple tracks we liked. Obviously, to get a placement like that, there must be some level, but I think part of the reason why, at least my take on it, and maybe you feel the same way, why we thought it was so bad is it felt like it just didn't fit with the vibe.
The music? Oh
Yeah,
no.
there was just
No.
something about, and maybe it was because of that moment in the 80s when synthesizers are like all the rage. So all this music is like heavy synths or just is like this weird, moody kind of stuff that didn't,
Mm.
to me, match up with like the kind of funny-ish vibe of this film.
No, it didn't.
Um,
It felt like doctor's office music, or it felt like Doogie Howser. That's a great way to explain it. If you watch Doogie Howser, it's
yes.
almost like clinical, and this movie felt like it deserved some Johnny B. Good. And it's proof that like hit Back to the Future, that movie, that soundtrack's banging. It's
Oh,
banging.
banging.
So
Banging.
they had a
Yeah.
choice. They had a choice. That tells me there was like budget, or they picked the wrong person, or they didn't care. It was like a
Yeah.
afterthought or something. They could have done better.
They could have done better. I want to bring up something about like a few of the scenes, which being that I was watching this with a 4-year-old, I was like, okay. Let's talk about the party scene
Yeah.
because I'm going to be open here. I was not cool in high school. I did not go to parties. I think maybe I went to one party when I was in high school, and it was like one of my best friends dragged me to go. I did not, drink when I was in high school. I was a super good girl. So these party scenes in films to me are always so interesting because I'm like, this actually happened. And this high school party scene in the 80s was so over the top and kind of a weird, like very sexually exploitative way. I was kind of
Yeah.
watching this and thinking, God,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
anybody has like any kind of an anxiety disorder, this is like so traumatizing being at this party. So basically, Styles, the like best friend slash social agitator, let's put him like that because he does just
Mm-hmm.
seem to like want to stir shit up. He
Mm-hmm.
gets some kind of game going with everybody in this room, and it's like they have to draw names from a hat. The girls draw a guy's name, and then they have to do like some kind of prank or something with the guy. Pranks
Mm-hmm.
being, okay, these two people have to go in the other room and they have to like switch each other's clothes on. And so the guy puts on the girl's clothes, the girl puts on the guy's clothes, and then they come back in. Or, there's this couple that they show in the first shot where they're like handcuffed together and covered in whipped cream or shaving cream, and they're in their underwear, like trying to wrestle themselves out of this
Yeah.
thing. It was like so.
It's like
I'm
some
like,
very
what is? Yeah,
80s like
super
frat boy like
very frat boy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, like what is
What
this? And
about the
then
makeout scene in the closet?
yeah, and so Michael J. Fox goes into the closet with or sort of Scott and Boof go into the closet, and she like really likes him, so she's fakes on her piece of paper that she's going into the closet with him. But even that, I was like, I would have had a panic attack, like in real life, if somebody was like, okay, just because I was so incredibly shy
Yeah,
too,
it's
that
like
that would
two
have been
minutes.
like,
They're playing 2 minutes in the closet kind of
yeah,
thing where they like put you in there and like you make out or you don't, and then everyone like howls when you come out. But yeah, no, we never played 2 minutes in the closet. That wasn't like a thing. We
it,
played spin the bottle, which
yeah,
seems safer.
yeah, yeah.
Witnesses, consent, etc. Yeah.
So
So
there's definitely moments in this film. I think certain things just don't age well. Like I think
well,
it
they
also
move,
says
yes,
something
because
about the
she walks out of the closet after their 2 minutes, and she's got a huge slash and cuts on her back that they never address later. They never
oh
talk
yeah,
about that. Like
yeah,
basically, he's let the wolf out, and he's
yeah,
like torn her to bits, and she likes it. It's like
yeah. She's
okay,
like, ooh, wow,
well, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, she
yeah.
didn't like that.
There's yeah, and even the part where so part of the setup to the party, they're trying to get that keg. They're trying to get a keg of beer. Michael J. Fox goes in, and Styles tries to convince him to like pretend to rob the guy to get a keg of beer to bring to
Oh
this
yeah, I
party.
forgot about
And
that.
he's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. And he just goes in, and then like his wolf vibes come out as he's like, give me a keg of beer. And his whole voice changes and stuff. And the guy's like, oh, okay. And then they show up to this party with the keg of beer. And the guy goes, yeah, cool. Just put it with the others. And there's like 50 other kegs. People just show up to these parties with all these kegs. So it's kind of fascinating because it feels so old. Like it
Yeah.
felt so old watching this.
Yeah, it's almost like this movie was designed to appeal to straight up 18-year-olds. So I don't
Oh,
know, maybe at
totally.
that time it was like that's who was going to the movies the most. That's, it's like it
Yeah.
was designed for those people. I do want to talk before we give our rating, which, you know, no, let's just give our rating. Three, three, five, five, four. No, four.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say it's a three,
Yeah.
and I'm giving that because I do like Michael J. Fox.
Oh, yeah. So that's a great segue.
Yeah, I love Michael J. Fox. We're going to talk a little bit more about his career and his background. This is not a great movie. It's got some heart. It's weird.
Mm,
It kind of surprisingly has some deep themes, about like identity and popularity, embracing who you are, even
yeah.
when you're extremely furry, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's hairy. It's
yeah,
weird.
which
Yeah.
which is kind of what ends up happening, right? Because the whole thing is he becomes popular when he's the wolf, but he's he really himself? No. And it's the people who stand by him when he wasn't the wolf who ultimately are the people who are really his friends.
Yeah, the idea that when you're yourself, you're more likely you're authentically winning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When you win as yourself, the payoff is better. It's kind of like don't cheat, don't manipulate to win. Just
Yes.
win being yourself, using your skills, using your natural talent, not your charm, not your, you know what I
Yes.
mean? These kinds of things. I just wanted to say really quickly too, we've mentioned this on another podcast, but Michael J. Fox, these were huge moments for him. These were like the top of his career kind of moments. Maybe not the tippity tippity top, but like Back to the Future was game changing for him. And he has this specific energy which people fell in love with. It's sort of like bouncing off the walls. He's like, I'm Sprite, maybe that's rude to say because he's small, but he has that sprightly sort of like puck energy. That's a Shakespeare reference where he's like kind
Hmm.
of like he's little devilish in a way, scrappy, but also like wholesome and good-hearted. And
Yeah.
uh he has that, I watched his documentary on Apple TV and it really, you know, sometimes documentaries really knock me over, but this really knocked me over and I related to it and I thought it was so important because a lot of times documentaries tell sad stories just to have you be like, "Whoa, he's been through a lot." But
Yeah.
it would not be a Michael J. Fox documentary if it like left you with that kind of message. And so famously he came out with having Parkinson's. Like, I don't know, maybe he was 50 years old when he started to talk
No,
about
so
that.
he was diagnosed when he was 29. So in
Well, right.
1991 he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and then he didn't disclose it publicly until 1998.
Okay, so it was only 7 years later. So the whole thing is that part of his energy was sort of these warning signs that something was wrong. His shakiness, he was sort of they were precursors. A lot of his like personality affectations and things like that were precursors to his Parkinson's. And when you hear that your burdens or your gifts or your curses or your blessings, like it's real. Like those precursors, that energy, it made him a huge star. His documentary, it's called Still, by the way, which is the antithesis to the symptoms of Parkinson's, which makes you shake and you literally can't stay still on it. It's very exhausting. It's very painful. Just imagine shaking back and forth literally all day long and how tired you would be at the end of that day. And also worrying that it's going to affect your career in a negative way. It's exhausting to hide that.
Hmm.
And so eventually he decided to tell the world about it. And people felt sad for him and he was famously positive. He became an activist. He started talking to everyone about Parkinson's and he kept working and he worked and worked and worked until he finally decided to retire in 2020 because of his declining health, but he's still making guest appearances on like Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's using his illness as a tool. He's showing it in his acting. And Curb usually they have these stars on that play themselves and they do like wacky takes on their actual personalities. So I know I'm going on and on and on, but I was so touched and moved because Michael J. Fox is like Canadian. He doesn't come from money. He worked in burger joints. He negotiated the role for Back to the Future on the phone from a burger joint he was working at. His dad moved him to LA when he was really young, had his back big time, and he really made a star of himself, and it's really cool. And so it's just, I like the idea that your weaknesses or your gifts, you can feel bad about things that are wrong with you your whole entire life. But generally, how you look at them, when you really sort of take a microscope to it all, you start understanding that everything works together. You take the good with the bad. I always say that, but it's true because those things are going to drive you in other ways. They're going to set you apart from people. They really, really are. And you can't be yourself without your abnormalities or your exceptionalness or
Mhm.
whatever. And he's the perfect example of that because it was working for him before he even knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're talking about how hard he was working during his early part of his career, so he was filming Family Ties by day and then at night was filming Back to the Future.
That's right.
So he
Mhm.
slept like 3 hours a night for months.
Yeah, because he
For
wanted to say
months.
yes to say
Because he
he
wanted to
went.
say
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And that's huge, right? I mean, and look, Back to the Future, massive success. Teen Wolf rode the coattails of Back to the Future. That's how it also was able to become a surprise box office hit, was because of him. It really
Mhm.
was. He then went on to make more films, the whole Back to the Future trilogy, which completely cemented his stardom. He,
I liked two, but not three.
yeah, I can't remember three.
It was a
I was thinking
Western. It
about that. Yeah, yeah.
was weird.
Um,
Nick watched them all too. He'd never seen all of them,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah.
they're solid. I haven't,
Yeah.
it's been a second. I have to like dust those off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, he had some other successful films, The Secret of My Success, which came out in 1987,
Mm,
Doc Hollywood, which came out in 1991,
that's
The
pretty good.
Frighteners in 1996, and he was the voice of Stuart Little in the Stuart Little movie. He also led the hit series Spin City,
Hmm.
where he earned multiple Golden Globes and Emmys. And
Yeah, that's
he,
another career highlight. The Spin
yeah,
City. It was
yeah,
huge. It went on and on and on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that was the show where, halfway through, 2 years into it, is when he comes out to the public and he's like, I have Parkinson's. He's been a huge advocate for Parkinson's research. He founded the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research in the year 2000. And so far, they have raised over $1.5 billion towards finding a cure.
Wow.
And that's pretty wild. I do have to say they don't mention it here, but my personal favorite Michael J. Fox movie is called Greedy. It
Oh
is
yeah.
absolutely hilarious. It's got Kirk Douglas, Phil Hartman, who is
You
such an
have brought this
incredible.
movie up on another podcast before. Aaron loves this movie. I gotta watch this like tonight. Okay,
I love it.
I'll watch it
I
tonight.
love it. I love it. I love it.
Okay,
It's just,
Greedy.
there are these one-liners in there that Phil Hartman delivers. The characters are just
I think I've seen it,
bonkers.
but I don't remember.
They're over the
Yeah.
top. So it's basically about this uncle who has all this money and
Mm.
he's got all these nieces and nephews who like totally are kissing his ass, hoping he's going to die soon and who's going to get the money.
Yeah.
And Michael J. Fox's father, at one point had gotten into a fight with his brother who's incredibly wealthy. And he's like, we're out of here. You're not having anything to do with me and my family anymore. And had moved them
Yeah.
all away. And then
Yeah.
he randomly gets contacted that his uncle, who he hasn't seen in years and years and years, wants to see him. And so
Mm.
he comes, and the rest of the family's like, oh shit, the favorite cousin's back. Like they get so pissed and they're like,
Yeah.
we've been kissing your ass for years. So
It's
funny.
funny. Okay, I'm
So,
gonna
so
watch it
funny.
tonight.
It's
Okay.
just, there's like so many turns in it. He plays a professional bowler. I'm sure there was a stunt double for that too, because I
Yeah.
don't know if how good his bowling skills could possibly be. But it's a fun watch. Is it the
Yeah.
best movie ever made? Definitely not. But it's fun, and I think it's one of those things. It's like your guilty pleasure, right? I feel like everybody
Yes.
kind of has a movie that they like to watch. It's just
Yeah.
comfortable. You know it so well. I mean, I can say some of the lines off the top of my head. They say Phil Hartman's character, "This seems like a shock to you." He's like, Shitting a sailboat's a shock. This is a fucking catastrophe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Shitting a sailboat's a shock. You've quoted that on this podcast before. Erin loves this movie. I'm watching it tonight. I'm watching it tonight.
You got toys in the attic, Uncle Joe. Broken toys.
Erin's cracking herself up. I love it.
Oh my God.
Okay, so speaking of like not so good movies, Erin and I
Yes.
are tired. We're in the mood to be artsy. We don't want to watch any more like level 3 to 5 movies. We're ready for like some 9s and some 10s.
Yes. So we're going to, I think, go back into focusing on different really interesting directors, some of which you may know, some of which you might not know of. All right. So, audience, next film we're going to be talking about next week is out right
Sin-
now. It's getting huge acclaim, lots of awesome attention. Tom Cruise actually went to see it and he was like, everyone needs to see this film. And that film is
Sinners.
Sinners. So check it out. We're going to be talking about it. We'll be talking about the director, the cast, and the beauty of the film. So thank you so much for joining us, Emmy. Always a
Yes.
pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Erin, and talk about hairy, weird, shoot your shot, full
Yeah, shoot
wolf
your
form
shot.
movies. This
Yeah.
is going to wrap up our werewolf series for a moment. Never
Thank you
say
for saying for a
never.
moment. That's
Yes,
so generous as my
well,
friend,
listen,
Emmy.
I know I love you,
Oh.
and honestly, I feel like maybe Teen Wolf wasn't the best one, but we need a break from wolves,
We need a
so
break. Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
come back. We'll come back to it later, and we'll go see something in the theater because it's important to support the theater. Sinners is in
Yes.
theaters now. Go see it. You're gonna have a chance a week to go. So go.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. Download the episodes, pre-download them. It really helps us. Leave a 5-star review. We wanted to
Yes.
keep doing this for you, and every review, every download helps us. So
It really, really, really
yes.
does. And if you've
Yeah.
ever run a small business, you know how huge the impact of even just one review can be. So we really appreciate everybody who's done that so far.
Yes.
And thank you for the support.
Yeah. See you next time. Bye,
See you
Erin.
next time.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
1, 2.